Right, I want to try and explain to you this piece of code that I've written on the screen. This piece of code's quite complex, so you have to bear with me a moment. It uses something called a variable. So a variable is, you'll find them down here. You have to make a variable before you can use it. You can name it anything you like, the variable, okay? Can't have any gaps in the name, right? So I called mine brightness. So make a variable called brightness, and on the start, so as soon as you put the power on, you give it a value. So it's going to be on 0. So that means that when you put the power on, the LED will be off. And then I've got a forever loop here. That's something that's just going to carry on forever. And then inside that, I've got something called an elif loop, an else if loop. So if something happens, then do this. Else, if this happens, then do this. And at the bottom end, I've got something called an analog write. Now, if you did tutorial 2, you'll have seen analog writes already. The clever thing here is I'm writing the value that is the variable. Okay, so let me just delete all this stuff again and show you how I'm going to build out from scratch. So first thing is I need an on start button, and then I need a variable. So I go to variables and I create a variable and I call it brightness. So that's done already, okay? So on start, I set the brightness to 0. You'll have to select your variable from down here, okay? It'll be listed down the bottom. Now I go and get my forever loop. So my forever loop is sat in the basics commands by here. And then I go to a logic command, right? So logic command like this. And you'll notice it says if and then else. You need to click on the plus button and you're going to get a different kind of loop. And then you can delete this bottom one by here. So you've got if and then else if. This is what we call an elif loop or an else if loop. Okay, next job then. We need to have a command here which says, is button A pressed? And you'll find that again in the logic command. So I go down here and I find the button that says, oops, sorry, it's not in that one. It's in the button that is pins. No, sorry, inputs. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place there. If I go to inputs, you can see there, I've got if button A is pressed, then do something. Well, we want to add a number onto the variable. So what we do is go back to variables and we go change the brightness by a number. Well, I'm going to add 5 to it. And then we've got another one of those button press things. So remember where it was again. It was in input. And we're asking if button B is pressed this time round. So change the A to a B. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. They never come alone, do they? So if you go now, if button B is pressed, you want to get the light dimmer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the variable by taking stuff off it. So I'm going to go back into my variable button by here. I'm going to go change brightness. But this time round, rather than having a positive number, I'm going to go -5. So I'm going to take away numbers from the variable. So there's my 2 buttons that are going to make it brighter and darker. And then my last thing is I need to send a message to the pin to say analog write. So in other words, a variable signal write to pin 2, that's where my LED is connected, and then the number that it's going to write in is going to change as it's taken away from or added to. So what we're going to do there is we've got to go to variables. Where's my variables gone again? There. And I've got to put brightness into that box at the bottom. Okay, so that should work now. Button A is pressed, change brightness by 5. Else if button B is pressed, then change brightness by -5. Once that's done, write the variable to pin 2. Okay, let's have a go then, shall we? I'm going to just delete that last one down the bottom if you can see it, and I'm going to download that as a new file. Once it's downloaded, click on my show in folder button and then drag that onto my microbit down the bottom. Give it a second for the download window to come on. There's my light flashing, look, nice and brightly. There's my download window. %, complete. Okay, so keep watching the LED now, right? So if I press button A, it gets brighter, 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 brighter. It's flicking a bit probably because that's the frame rate on the video. If I press button B, look, it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until eventually it turns off. So I've got a dimming button, and where I take my finger off the button is where it stays, okay? I'm looking at the LED and it doesn't appear to be flickering like it is on the screen, okay? So button A makes it brighter, button B makes it dimmer. Okay, so that's my dimming button working. Just close that down. Now you might want to do screen grabs of these programs as you go along, which is good evidence. If you want to do screen grabs of your program, if you right click on the page anywhere, and then you've got a snapshot, what that'll do is it'll do a screen grab of your page that you've been working on, and you will find that in your downloads folder. So if you go to a new document and then just insert from file and then click to your downloads folder, you'll find the picture that you've just taken of that code, which is really good evidence for us. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. Well done, everybody.